أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن السادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Black lesson number 104 on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist with all of these Black lessons in chronological order. So if you're new to our class, our family, these lessons, maybe there was some aspect of Blackness and al-Islam that you don't think we covered, when in fact we did cover it. Just go visit that playlist and all 104 of these videos will be there, inshallah, on our YouTube playlist. And our Facebook videos, we don't delete them either, but I think it's easier to find. It's more organized on YouTube. Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Talib, Abdul Bar, Maryam, Nunu, Arakia, Samira, Sidi Nasiru, Rahman, Abu Yahya, Tahira. Alhamdulillah. We left off on page 107, where the author, this is the chapter, The Daughters of Hajj, Female Scholarship in the African Islamic Tradition. And he began by showing how female descendants, great-great-grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ ended up in Africa teaching. So that's where we're at. So we're at the bottom of page 187, Samira, beginning with that last paragraph, inshallah. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما الحمد لله وكفى وسلامه على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I seek refuge in Allah from the rejected shaitan. May Allah bless our master, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, companions, and give them peace. All praise is due to Allah, for He is sufficient for us. Peace be upon His slaves, whom He has chosen. As to what follows. Both Sayyida Zainab, as well as her two nieces, Sukina and Fatima, were reported to have passed away and buried in Cairo, Egypt, each with masjids built in commemoration of their noble lives. Alongside these two, Cairo also has the honor of containing the masjid of one of the greatest female scholars of the Islamic tradition, also from the prophetic household, Sayyida Nafisa. Nafisa was the daughter of Al-Hassan al-Anwar, the son of Zayd al-Ablaj, the son of Al-Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abu Talib, the grandson of the Prophet. She was born in Mecca, and when her father was made governor of Medina in her youth, she migrated to Medina alongside him and attached herself to the masjid, attending classes on fiqh and hadith after already having memorized the Qur'an.
I want to stop right there, because even though he mentioned that, anytime you hear about a scholar, or like a wali of Allah, you should already assume that they had memorized the Quran. I know for us, it's, and it is a big achievement, and it's obviously something good, but that was kind of like the beginning level for people of high rank. You just automatically assume that they memorize the Quran. And may Allah make us like that we stop taking the Quran for granted, and that we prioritize that in our families, in our communities, and in all of the institutions that we run, that we put the the memorization of the Quran, as well as the learning the other sciences of the Quran, we make it a priority. And I always said, I've done it before years ago, that I've seen a pattern that anytime someone, for example, will come on social media and they would encourage people to memorize the Quran, it'll, it's sad. It actually triggers Muslims. Like, you get a whole bunch of comments like, uh, well, it's more important that we act according to the Quran rather than memorize it, as if you can't do both at the same time, right? That's People are triggered because they are detached from the Quran, and they want to subconsciously justify their detachment from the Book of Allah. That's why it's crazy. It's amazing and sad at the same time that you can have a post on social media with nothing but Muslims, and most of them are criticizing the memorization of Quran. That's crazy. That's sick, and that shows you our state. May Allah not make us like that. So, he mentioned that, but for real, he didn't really have to mention it. But I guess in our time, it needs to be mentioned. Bismillah, go ahead.
Bismillah. She later married her cousin Ishaq ibn Jafar as-Sadiq, and they
Jaffa
both
as-Sadiq. He didn't
Sadiq,
translate literally, but go ahead.
and they both moved to Egypt, where the people of Cairo welcomed her and flocked to benefit from her knowledge. She hosted circles of knowledge in her home and was frequented by many of the most prominent scholars and personalities of the era, including Abdullah ibn al-Hakam, Dhul Nun al-Misri, Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Dinuri, Abu Ali al-Ruzabari, Abu Bakr al-Dakak, Abdullah ibn Wahb, Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, Rahimullah, Abu Nasr, Sirajuddin al-Maghfari, Abu Bakr al-Haddad, Imam al-Hajjaj al-Ashbili, Imam Yusuf ibn Yaqub Muharai, Abdul Ghani ibn Said al-Azdi, Imam Abu Abdullah al-Qudai, Imam Abu Zakaria al-Sukawi, Imam Wash al-Shirazi, Abu Hassan al-Musili, and other prominent scholars of religion and the other sciences, but perhaps her most famous student was the titan of jurisprudence, Imam Shafi. May Allah be pleased with
There's a whole lot of heavyweights on that list. I hope y'all just wasn't zoomed out and just not paying attention. When I was younger, I don't know if it still comes on TV or if younger people still know about it, but there was a cartoon called Peanuts or Charlie Brown. And anytime adults would speak in the cartoon, there weren't actually words. It was just right. I didn't notice it at first as a child growing up, but I noticed it later. Hey, the adults' words weren't, legible. They was just talk. And I guess that's done to indicate that children don't really want to pay attention to what the adults have to say. And sadly enough, sometimes when we get to certain aspects of some areas of Islamic learning and the teacher is talking, we kind of zoom out too. We're really not paying attention. We just hear noise in the background. I just want to point out some names that some of us may be familiar with. Dhunun al-Misri, Abdullah ibn Wahab, Imam al-Tahawi, and of course, Imam Abu Zakaria al-Sakawi, and of course, Imam al-Shafi. All of these are big names, but some of these names we may be a little bit more familiar with. Alhamdulillah. So all of these people are learning from a woman. Can you imagine the benefit that will be cut off if this was happening, that those people and that learning was attempted to be taking place today in America? So half of y'all will be like, it's haram for her to be even teaching. Why is this sister here teaching in the presence of men? She can't. This is not permissible, and all kinds of stuff like this. Gotta watch those jokers. Anyway, go ahead.
Bismillah. Ibn Kathir narrates in Al Bidayah wal Al Nihaya. She was a wealthy lady and did a lot of favors to the people, especially those paralyzed, those with severe illness, and to all other ill people. She was a devout, ascetic, and of abundant virtue. When Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, arrived in Egypt, she did good to him. And sometimes Shafi led her in prayers in Ramadan and was a frequent guest in her house, a listener of her lectures in her masjid, and as it reported by the historians, asked for her dua and sought for blessings from her. When Al Shafi fell sick, rahimahullah, and afterwards felt the approaching death, he immediately wrote his will, in which he mentioned that Nafisa was honorably expected to read prayers over him, and so after the death of the Imam, his body was carried to her house and she prayed over it. She passed away a mere 4 years after her student and was buried in Cairo, where, similar to her predecessors, a masjid was built next to the site of her grave. It too enjoying a status of immense popularity in Egypt, flocked to by thousands seeking her blessing and making supplications while appealing to her spiritual status. Sayyida Nafisa's sister-in-law, Sayyida Aisha bint Jafar as-Sadiq, also lived in Cairo and is accounted among her students as well as a student her own father, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, about whom Imam Malik said, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has conceived a man who was better than Jafar in knowledge, piety, and God consciousness, and who we know to have been a huge proponent of female education, as we discussed in chapter 3. Like her aforementioned family members, Sayyida Aisha Rahimullah also had a masjid built upon her resting place, which also endures as a popular shrine of visitation, similar to those of her aunts and sister-in-law. This was the spirit which
Among Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, it's a highly recognized practice to visit ziyarah, to visit the ulama, the scholars, and the awliya, the protected friends of Allah, while they are alive and after they pass. And if you have Wahhabi leanings or you come from a Wahhabi indoctrinated background, you may not feel comfortable with that, because they make it seem that if you visit the grave in any shape, form, or fashion, regardless of what you do there, you're worshiping the people in the graves. That's why they slander us. One of the first things that they'll call you are grave worshipers, as if the Muslims like really go into the grave worshiping the people in the graves. Like, this is one of their slanders about us. So, like, you find a Muslim going near a grave, the Wahhabi, right? The ears go up like grave worshiper, deviant, Sufi, right? It's all the same to them. They like synonyms to Wahhabis: Sufi, grave worshippers, mushriks. To them is all synonyms. It means all the same to them. And I'm just calling this out. So if we still have remnants of that in us, we purify ourselves of that. And we don't get timid or meek or speak apologetically about that. It's amazing how we can be 10 toes down and all these other stuff people say about people about that business when we on some deviant stuff. But when it comes to the truth, we get timid and meek and scared and worried about what people going to say. Anyway, go ahead. Sure.
Bismillah. This was the spirit with which female Islamic scholarship entered Africa, finding home on the continent through luminous and influential role models, all of whom inherited the prophetic light of their grandfather with the noblest of manners, all of whom carried and shared that light, knowledge, and wisdom with the Muslim Ummah of their day, setting a precedent that would be upheld and followed by countless African female scholars, each heiress to that light in their own unique and fascinating way. One of the best examples of this is to remind ourselves of the previous chapter where I mentioned the Umayyad general and companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Uqba ibn Nafi, may Allah be pleased with him, who founded the city of Karawan, which became an important center of Islamic scholarship and Quranic learning in Africa, producing numerous scholars and attracted many Muslims from various parts of the world. The city's legacy of Islamic scholarship will continue to make.
Mentioning Uqba ibn Nafi, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He is from Quraysh. He's a close relative, I forget, cousin, half brother, something like that, of Amr ibn al-As, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who's basically in charge of all of the campaigns in Egypt going west in North Africa. This companion is important because he married an African woman, and I forget her name. But through that marriage, the Turabbe Fulani lineage starts. And that's who the Shehu is descended from on his father's side. Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, his lineage goes back to him on his father's side. And if you trace the Shehu's lineage on his maternal or paternal grandmother's side, through his grandmother, I just forget which grandmother off the top of my head. But if you trace his grandmother's lineage, that goes directly back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's a name you should remember, Uqba ibn Nafi, close relative of Amr ibn al-As. Go ahead.
Bismillah. The city's legacy of Islamic scholarship will continue to make a lasting impact not just on the continent, but on the entire world through two of Karawan's exemplary daughters, Fatima and Maryam, both of whom migrated to Fez in Morocco with their father Muhammad al-Fihri, a wealthy trader that spent generously to ensure that his daughters had the highest standard of living and the best education available at the time. Fatima and Maryam were both scholars in their own right, and when their father passed away, he left them a hefty inheritance. They both resolved to dedicate that newfound wealth to paths of worship and knowledge. They commissioned two of the biggest masjids in Fez to serve as centers of learning and scholarship, with Maryam building Al Andalus Masjid and Fatima building the world-renowned Karawiyan Masjid. Founded in 859, the Karawiyan Masjid began to hold circles of knowledge in which the science, maths, and philosophy were taught alongside traditional Islamic religious sciences. And eventually it evolved into the first degree offering university. According to both UNESCO and Guinness World Records, it is the oldest university or oldest continually operating higher learning institution in the world. In its
You should
overall,
remember that a lot of times we sell out our deen, we sell our souls for dunya, and sometimes that involves going to these universities and in different ways compromising our deen. I'm not saying going to a university compromises your deen, but sometimes our involvement at different levels in the modern university system involves, for some of us, compromising or selling out, like all the atheism being taught there and all that kind of stuff, not realizing that this institution that you're ready to sell your deen for, you know, is actually patterned after and intellectually is like the child of the oldest still operating university, which is a Muslim institution. A lot of times, if you look at a lot of things that a lot of institutions that a lot of us Muslims, we say, well, if only the Muslims would do something like this, right? Well, a lot of times we don't realize the Muslims already did it. It's just that now the Muslims have gotten weak, fell off, and the non-Muslims took these Islamic institutions, remixed it, and reintroduced it to the world as if they're the ones who started it. Their stuff is just a corruption of what we already did. We just don't recognize our own stuff. Continue.
Bismillah. Founded in its over 1,000-year history, this university has produced notable alumni such as the Jewish philosopher Maimon, May, what's how you say that name?
Maimonides.
Maimonides, the Muslim philosopher Ibn Rushd, known in the West as Averroes, and the famous historian and father of sociology Ibn Khaldun. Qur'an was even the alma mater of Pope Sylvester II, who introduced Arabic numerals to Europe, replacing Latin numerals in use with near ubiquity. Considering these numerals form the basic mathematical notations of modern science and technology, it's no exaggeration to claim that not only was Harawiyan the oldest university in the world, it also had an indirect effect on the spread of natural philosophy in the West, forming the basis of the global civilization and monoculture that we take part in today.
You got
Islam.
too much background noise going on over there. They need to respect the fact that you're reading. Uh, Lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Islam, as we mentioned earlier, spread from North Africa into West Africa, from Morocco and Mauritania into Mali and Songhai, and from Egypt and Sudan into Chad and northern Nigeria. And the teachings and study of Islamic religious sciences spread along with it. When engaging that history and legacy of Islam in West Africa, many people discover the vast scholarly heritage that bore fruit in the universities of Sankore and Jinne, to the intellectual and spiritual centers of Sokoto and Kano. Like every other formative period of Islam, one of the main pillars that led to the strength and spread of the faith in West Africa and the continued power and positive influence it has over the millions of people in the region is the fundamental role that women play within the institutions of Islamic praxis and scholarship.
I was talking to a brother. He's actually in the comments now. But he mentioned how he witnessed with his own eyes something that the imams on the Black Imams Roundtable say quite frequently, that the sisters be holding it down. The sisters, with regards to their consistency in learning, their seriousness with regards to learning, their support and upholding of the Islamic institutions. I'll go even further to say that for many of us, if it weren't for the sisters, we wouldn't even exist anymore. That's how critical of a role that they play. And a lot of times when when I say something like that and I think about that, sometimes it makes me sad with regards to our brothers. But then again, I get happy because these women are the first teachers of the children. So perhaps their children won't be like our present generation. It gives me sad and happy feeling. Like, come on, brothers. Right? And the brothers, when they hear it, they get mad. Oh, here you go again. Always, trying to pump up the sisters. They ain't got nothing to do with pump up the sisters. The reality is a lot of us brothers, when it comes to serious matters, we still act like children. We still act like children. We always have to be redirected. We always have to be reminded. We always have to, like almost like in like when you're dealing with children, you always got to redirect the child. Stay focused. Stay on task. Remember, we have to do this and we have to do that. And and a lot of times, a lot of the sisters don't need that. I don't know what it is. A lot of people say it's ego. Like a lot of times, a lot of brothers, a lot of men have a problem with taking direction or following another man. And so a lot of people say like it's ego. And so their ego gets in the way of doing what they need to do to strengthen and put in work in Islam, because Islam has a hierarchy. They are leaders. But also, I think, especially with us, our people, Black people in particular, I think there's something else going on. I remember a scene from The Wire, that TV drama that was out, I don't know how many years ago, based in Baltimore. Some people say it is or was the best. It's critically acclaimed from all corners, best TV series ever. There was a scene in that when the police had went into, I think it was a junior high school or elementary school, I forget. And they were in the gym or the auditorium, and they were trying to talk to the children. And there's police uniforms and all that stuff. And the kids is cutting up and acting crazy and not paying attention to nobody. Then one of the female teachers from the school's like, everybody be quiet. And all the kids got they got shook. They got in line for that female authority figure in the school. The directors of that episode, they made a point to highlight that. I've seen that in real life. I've seen that in real life. I've seen situations where you have male and female authorities in charge of children. I've seen the male authority figures give instruction and direction. And I've watched the children like ain't respecting it. And it don't matter what type of male authority figure it is. It could be somebody with street cred. It could be somebody high education. It could be the person that's running the institution. It don't even matter. Whatever. And I seen in that same place a female authority come in and say, whoa, calm down now. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Such. I'm like, subhanallah. Yo, this stuff is real. We have been socialized to not acknowledge, disrespect, always challenge male authority, while at the same time falling in line and getting humble in the face of female authority. And I'm talking about black males. That's weird. That's the complete opposite of natural society, the way stuff runs. Usually, in most normal societies, you better fall in line with the female elders and authority, because if the male authority has to get involved, that's something you don't want to deal with. But in our society, it's like, well, I don't care nothing about that dude. Like in that series of Why, I don't care if he is police. I don't care about all them bars, the guns, the uniform, the hat. I don't care about none of that stuff. But that black female teacher can come in there with no gun, no weapon, no authority outside of that school building, and you act like you scared. You fall right in line. I think we need to pay attention to that, because somehow this is how we're being socialized. I don't know how it's happening, but I know it's happening because I've seen it in real life. And these children grow up to be adults. And I'm seeing the same character trait in these adult men, these adult boys. If sisters say a certain thing, they fall in line. Any male authority figure, ready to challenge you at every step, even ready to get physical with you. We have to be conscious that this is our reality. And so when we're dealing with each other, we know what we're dealing with. And most of us aren't practicing Islam at any level of depth so that we can purify ourselves of this. We just like on the surface. Islam hasn't intermixed with our blood and flesh yet. So these blameworthy traits that we picked up in this weird social experiment that we call America is still there. And it's affecting, and impacting the way that we practice Islam and internalize it. It's actually blocking us. It's a hindrance. And I've seen some people in the comment, in the comments, they saw it too. They see it too in real life. Bismillah, go ahead.
Bismillah. Looking through the annals of history, we are offered the names of many illustrious scholars and saints across places like ancient Mali, Mauritania, and northern Nigeria, who have been the backbone of the Muslim community in Africa, responsible for teaching and training thousands, male and female alike. Abdul Qadir Kane, for example, who was the Imam of Futa Toro, was a student of a female Mauritanian scholar called Khadija bint Muhammad al-Daymaniya. Kane was one of most scholars who not only studied with female teachers, but also taught their daughters and female relatives so that they too could become great fountains of knowledge. One of the most celebrated illustrations of this practice was the Sultan of the Sokoto Caliphate, Sheikh Uthman Danfodio's famous daughter, Nana Asma'u Danfodio. Her father and extended family trained her in all the Islamic sciences, and in her adulthood, she wrote over 60 different poems and treatises in 4 different languages: Arabic, Hausa, Fulani, Tamashek, Tuareg.
And she wasn't the only of the Shehu's daughters who were scholarly. She's the most famous one. She wasn't the only one. He had most, if not all, of his daughters were scholarly and wrote fatwas, for example. And people used to go to them for instructions. The women, the daughters of the Shehu, like Maryam bint Shehu. She wrote a fatwa guiding people because during her lifetime, there was a massive hijrah to Sudan at the to support Muhammad Ahmed of Sudan. He was uh, a leader, uh, a scholar in Sudan fighting the British, but he had claimed to be the Mahdi. And people were migrating to from the night what is now called Nigeria to what is now called Sudan, thinking that the Shehu had foretold this and they were following the instructions of the Shehu. And she had to clarify that yes, the Shehu did foretell a hijrah, a migration to the east, but this is not it. And she brought all of the proofs and evidences because she was a scholar. Bismillah. Go ahead.
Bismillah. She, Rahimullah, was also responsible for expanding the pre-existing Yantaro education system, which was a network of female scholars who would study the various Islamic sciences under an instructor called a Jaji. Once they finished their course of studies, they would graduate and receive certification and permission to establish their own circle of knowledge, teaching women in their own communities, and in doing so, organically expanded a network of thousands of women educated in Islamic science that continues to serve West African communities to this day. Nana Asma'u, Rahimullah, also played a major advisory role in the administration of her father's sultanate and continued to do so when her half brother, Muhammad Bello, inherited his father's role. Nana Asma'u's sister, Maryam, Rahimullah, though not as well known, was also a capable scholar. She studied under her father, Sheikh Uthman, and memorized the Qur'an with her mother, Hawa bint Sheikh Adam. She then studied Arabic and some books of jurisprudence with her half sister Khadija, also a scholar, and her full brother Muhammad Bello, and the remaining sciences with some of her paternal and maternal aunts. She was the last of Sheikh Uthman's children to survive him and wrote a small booklet called The Treatise on the Exodus, which served as a first hand eyewitness account detailing the history of her father's movement. Her treatise was written
That's
eloquent.
that that's what I was just talking about. Treatise on the Exodus when I mentioned what she wrote. And if you I want you to read this paragraph again because this is an important system of learning that we have to incorporate. A lot of us we think too much like Westerners, and I don't know what other term to use, but we think most too much like non-Muslim Westerners. Like we think in order to learn something serious, we have to go outside of those closest to us to learn. The Shehu and other scholars like that, they didn't do that. You exhaust the scholarship you have right around you first. Your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, your aunties, your neighbors, in your locality. And then you go out if you're reaching that high level where you can't find that knowledge near you. We have to get out of that. There's too many of us do that. Like, for example, too many of us will leave America and go someplace else to learn Islam. And then when we get there, right, we don't even know how to read Arabic. So we're in some other country going ooh ba bit boo ta tit too. Like for real, you spent $1,500 on an airline ticket, and you're gonna be over there X amount of years. But you was in America, and in your family, and in your masjid, there were dozens of people who could have taught you ooh ba bit boo ta tit too. Like for real. But you don't think it's worth anything. So you get on a plane, spend $1,000 to go overseas to learn ooh, ba, big, ooh, ta, tit, too. Like, come on, for real. This is how sick we are in our thinking. So I want you to read that paragraph again, and I want all of us that are listening to just, instead of about them, think about your own families and those people who have knowledge in our families and in our masjid, in our communities close to us.
Bismillah. Nana Asma's sister Maryam, rahimahullah, though not as well known, was also a capable scholar. She studied under her father Sheikh Uthman and memorized the Qur'an with her mother Howard bint Sheikh Adam. She then studied Arabic and some books of jurisprudence with her half sister Khadija, also a scholar, and her full brother Muhammad Bello, and the remaining sciences with some of her paternal and maternal aunts. She was the last of Sheikh Uthman's children to survive him and wrote a small booklet called The Treatise on the Exodus, which serves as a first-hand eyewitness account detailing the history of her father's movement. Her treatise was written in eloquent and expert Arabic and remains an indispensable source on the history of Uthman then Fodio.
The beautiful another thing about the Sheikh's family, they've done what I've always encouraged us to do. They documented their own history. Muhammad Bello, Abdullahi Denfodio, as he mentioned right here, Maryam bint Shehu, and others documented not only the history that preceded them, but their own history and their movement. That's why when people come along later and say, oh, the Shehu did this, or the Shehu was this, or the Shehu wasn't that, we can go right to their own writings, whether it be something they did, history, or something they believed, or what their fiqh was, or what their tasawwuf is or was, and be like, nah, it says right here, such and such and so and so, right? You can't change history. You can't change their history uh, with us because their stuff is preserved. You can only trick people who don't know and don't have access to their books. You can't fool us. That's why it's important for us to document our own history. Trust me, because if someone comes along later and writes our history, if any of us still alive, you ain't gonna like what they write. It's not firsthand account. Even if they have good intention, they're not going to get it right because they weren't there. Go ahead.
Bismillah, and the beginnings of the Sokoto Caliphate. Another West African sheikh with connections to female scholarship is Ahmed Bamba Mbake, the son of Mami Mor Anta Salib Mbake, and born in 1853 in the village of Mbake Bao. He served as the Qadi judge in the court of Lat Dior Diak and the Damo, king of Kayor, a Wolof state that is today in south central Senegal. His mother, Mimi Diarra Bousso, came from a scholarly and prestigious family and was the daughter of a woman called Mame Asta Aisha Wallo. Mame Asta was a renowned expert of Maliki fiqh jurisprudence and operated her own madrasa in the village of Noel, where she hosted and taught hundreds of students, both male and female. Mame Asta's curriculum began with a complete memorization of the Noble Qur'an, followed by an intense program focusing on the primary texts of the Maliki legal school. To maintain this haven of
I want to
education,
highlight again. You see, with all of these illustrious scholars, right, that he's mentioning, the Quran is always there. Don't be like these people. Don't let these people trick you into skipping the Quran. No, your Islamic education begins with the Quran. How you going to skip the book of Allah? Our whole deen is based on the book of Allah. How you going to minimize that? Oh, that ain't important as long as we act according to it. Come on, don't let these people fool you. Bismillah. Go ahead.
Bismillah. To maintain this haven of education, she cultivated crops on her farm, ensuring the madrasa's self sufficiency. Sheikh Ahmed Bamba himself spent
Another extremely important point. Our institutions have to have businesses, income producing businesses attached to them so that our institutions can continue. In Islam, we call them awqaf, or like endowments. Like this model, I don't know where we got it from, but this model of, our institutions being run solely and only and exclusively based upon the donations of the people is not sustainable. Because today people feel like donating, tomorrow people don't feel like donating. How are you going to run something like that? You need businesses attached to these institutions. Go ahead.
Bismillah. Sheikh Ahmed Bamba himself spent his youth with Mama Asta in order to be initiated into the Islamic sciences. He began in Qur'an studies with his grandmother before completing it with his maternal uncle Muhammad Buso and his grandmother's brother Tafsir Mbake Ndumbe. However, perhaps most importantly, Sheikh Ahmed Bamba received his first taste of the spiritual sciences with Mame Asta as well. She, aside from being an expert in the outward sciences, was also a sheikha in the Tijani spiritual path. Her aesthetic pedagogy contributed to Sheikh Ahmed Baba's spiritual development, instilling in him the love for dhikr and seclusion from a young age. Her grave in the city of Nawal has become a place of ziyarah, visitation, alongside that of her daughter, Mame Diara Buso, in Porokani.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. This is what Ahlul Sunnah do. We visit our scholars and our righteous when they're alive and after they pass. It's the Wahhabis who don't. It's the Wahhabis who have a problem with that. Even if the person rejects or denies being a Wahhabi, that whole idea of staying away from the graves, not visiting the righteous and all that, that's from the Wahhabi corner, regardless of what they call themselves or what they deny that they are, or what they say they are. That's where that comes from. Part of the reason for the way they constructed their new creed is based on them having a problem with these practices. It's all interconnected. Go ahead.
Bismillah. In fact, the grave of Mame Diara Buso attracts hundreds of thousands of people annually at her Magal annual pilgrimage. It is the only such event dedicated to a female saint in Senegal and possibly Africa as a whole. She was one of the top teachers of her mother's madrasa, renowned for her expertise renowned for her expertise in the advanced Maliki legal text Muqtasar Khalil, and is reported to have personally overseen the Quran memorization of over 50 students, all of which she did prior to her marriage to Sheikh Ahmed Bamba's father. Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, raised by such capable women, instilled that legacy of knowledge into his own daughters, all of whom memorized the Quran, and many of whom continue on to become scholars worthy of their maternal ancestors. His first daughter, Sheikha Fatih Dia Mbake Fatima, was born in 1878, Rahimullah. Sheikh Ahmed Baba taught her the Quran himself, Rahimullah, until she memorized it, and then proceeded to teach her the wider Islamic sciences. She grew up very close to her father, so much so that when he was under house arrest in Diarame, he requested that a house be built for her near his residence so that she could keep him company. She,
Just in case you don't know the history, he was living during the time of the French colonization of Senegal in that area. So I don't want you to imagine it's not like for example like Ibn Taymiyyah who's locked up by the Muslims for his belief. No, Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba was locked up by the French, the Kufar. for his potential of rallying the people against colonization. But
Bismillah. She was well known for her piety, generosity, and unsurprisingly, the stark similarities she shared with her father in character, voice, and appearance. Another daughter of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, Sheikha Muslimatu Mbake, commonly known as Sokna Musli, was born in 1918 in a village founded by her father. She began memorizing the Quran at a young age, initially with her father, and then later completing her memorization with his senior student, Sheikh Endame Abdurrahman Low. When she completed her memorization, she wrote an entire Quran from memory to demonstrate her mastery of the text before proceeding to study the Islamic sciences with Sheikh Muhammadu Lamin Diab Dagana.
many Islamic schools in Africa, Quran schools in Africa, they have it as part of the curriculum. Some is Quran schools, they have it before the person graduates and is recognized as a hafiz. They have to write the Quran from memory. And so many times, when they graduate, they're graduating with at least one copy of their own Quran that they've written by memory. And you see all throughout this, the foundation is with the Quran. 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 We have to get back to that. We're always looking for shortcuts. I guarantee you, someone shows you a shortcut where you can get paid, you can get rich. By the time you finish dealing with that shortcut, the one who showed it to you will be more richer and you will be more poor. They're scamming you. Likewise, when it comes to this deen, a lot of us are getting scammed out of having a proper foundation of the deen because we keep trying to take shortcuts. We don't want to learn the basic books. We don't want to memorize none of the Quran. We just want to, I just want to know the meaning of it, right? Come on. We're like permanent suckers, permanent people ready to get scammed. All right, we have to break that cycle. Just like they had a cycle and still have where all or most of their children memorize the Quran, we have to get to that. That's a measuring stick where you can see us growing in Islam. You look at each of our families. How many children they got? How many of them memorize the Quran? Zero. How many children they got? How many of them memorize the Quran? Zero. It's too many zeros. Islam is not penetrating enough for us. When you start seeing, okay, that's a Muslim family. How many children memorize the Quran? One. They got a few children. One of them. How many children they got? Well, they got a few children. How many memorize the Quran? One, two, three. When you see that number gradually going up, then you know that Islam is penetrating our people. Until that, right now, it's the other way. That brother took Shahada. He married that non-Muslim. They have children. None of their children are Muslim. Islam stopped with him. He was the first and last Muslim in his bloodline. This brother right here, he became Muslim. He married that sister right there. She became Muslim. They had children. Their children struggling with the deen. Their children not like their parents, but that one is still holding on. That one fell off. This one is still there, right? You know, this where usually this where our families look, how our families look. Yeah, Muslim brother, right? The non-Muslim, 9 times out of 10. I know there's exception for all you not Orleans. 9 times out of 10, children ain't gonna be Muslim. You have both parents Muslim, exclusively raised here. High percentage, a lot of them gonna stop practicing the deen. Some of them may come back, some not. This is where we at right now. Many of us, we can point to that those one or two exceptions where, you know, two Muslim parents, children, all of them on the deen, practicing Islam. If you're honest, unless y'all know something I don't know, right? Maybe I'm in the wrong environment, but all the children on the deen, both parents became Muslim, first generation Muslim, and they got children, all of them on the deen, right? That's the exception. Unless I'm wrong, I'm in the wrong environment. If I'm in the wrong environment, let me know. I need to move where y'all at. We have to create environments to sustain what we want. If you buy some milk from the store, you brought it from a cold environment. If you bring that milk home and don't put it in a cold environment, that milk is going to spoil a whole lot faster. All different types of food have different types of environment that will help that type of food sustain longer. But if it's in an environment that's adverse to its growth, it's going to die quick. Me included, are having children in an environment that is adverse to Islam, and it kills the Islam in them quick. And some of us recognize this, and we're trying to build an environments that sustain the Islam of the adults and the children. But it's not enough of us, because too many of us, this is the way we think. Oh, my children are already grown. It ain't got nothing to do with me. Oh, I don't have no children yet, so I don't care nothing about that stuff. Islamic schools that all of our children can go to, or however that looks. Communities, environments, we live close to each other, and all that kind of stuff. Too many of us don't care. And one or two people in every city can't do it. So we don't have environments that sustain the Islam of our people. So many of us burn out. You know how many Muslims I know that I've known for a long time, and I've watched them burn out? It's easy to tell with the sisters. It should be easy to tell with the brothers, but it's not. Because most of us brothers have drank the Kool-Aid. We think that we don't have to look like a Muslim. It's only the women that need to look like Muslims. So we walk around blending in with everyone else. And we think there's nothing wrong with that. The women, their dress is more explicitly stated in the Qur'an. So you will see a sister fully garbed up, whatever that means for her, whether she covers her face or not. And this could be the strongest sister you know. You don't know no sister stronger than her. 10 years later, you stumble across her on social media. All of her hair out. Tight clothes. Why? She burnt out. That brother always had a kufi on, always had a thobe on. Every Jumu'ah there, 10 years later. Never wearing the thobe, never wearing the kufi. Barely go to Jumu'ah. He burnt out. The environment did not sustain him. He got weak. He got tired of fighting. And he's just like everyone else in the society right now. Just floating through life. It's too much resistance. You can't fight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, every year. Oh yeah, you're gonna get burnt out. You don't have the environment to rejuvenate you. And when we do try to create an environment, there's always some people among us that's working just as hard to destroy that environment. So whenever we get something started, it don't last. That stuff burns people out. I'm sorry, Samira. I forgot where you at. Okay, I know where you at. Bismillah, go ahead.
Bismillah. In adulthood, Sokna mostly lived a full and varied life as a scholar, poet, and businesswoman. She was well known for her agricultural activities and was one of the most successful commercial farmers in Senegal. Between 1962 and 1963, her farms produced over 30 tons of groundnuts, the most popular cash crop in Senegal at the time. She also
Groundnut for us Americans, that's peanuts.
She also used to sell cement and built a textile factory in Touba, her father's city. By 1960, during the official celebrations of Senegal's independence from France, all of the napkins used and placed on the tables in the official dinner ceremony were ordered by President Senghor from Sheikha Muslimatu's factory. Her farms also produced millet, which she then refined into dhier, a type of millet couscous, and a staple food in Senegal. Under her brand, under her own brand, Dhier Touba. She managed to sign a contract with the government of Senegal to supply the national army and Senegalese delegations to Hajj and her couscous.
With her
Outside,
couscous.
say it again.
With her couscous.
With her couscous. Outside of her activities as a businesswoman, she remained true to her education as a scholar and dedicated herself to the spread of Islamic knowledge, especially among women. She used her wealth to build many Quranic and Islamic schools for women. Due to this and her tremendous contributions to the development of Senegal's agriculture and business sector, she became the first woman in the history of Senegal to be awarded the Order of Merit, a national honorary award offered to the most distinguished citizens in recognition of services rendered to the nation. Sheikha Momaniatu Mbake, also a daughter of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, memorized the Quran and studied the Islamic sciences similar to her sisters, and pursued her own series of business ventures, selling traditional soft drinks such as ginger beer and other herbal and root-based beverages. Not one to forego the scholarly legacy she was born into, she also established many Quranic schools in Senegal for young women and children.
Look at all
Additionally,
these women laying it down. Not only just personally learning for themselves and teaching people close to them, establishing institutions of learning and business institutions that's benefiting not only people, but even the governments, modern governments. And look, all start from the Quran, the family. We have to bring Islam back into our families. For many of us, Islam is only in the masjids, and we don't go to the masjids. So there's no Islam for most of us. Think about it. Most of us look around our house and just think about it. Like, if a stranger walked into your house right now, would they know that a Muslim lives there? Will they hear Islamic sounds? Will they see Islamic stuff? Will they see you doing what Muslims do? Will there be any teaching going on? Any learning going on? And for many of us, the Islam that they will see is maybe a few books, maybe some tasbih, some sibha, some dhikr beads, maybe a prayer rug or something like that. Same stuff you see in the store. But we really will stop with that. Too many of us. We need to make our homes such that if somebody will walk into our house and catch us off guard, they will see, like, is it this the masjid? No, this is my house. No, I seen the class, seen, y'all praying together, and all the, like, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us not to turn our homes into graveyards, right? We need to bring life to our homes with adhkar, dhikr, with salat, with teaching and learning. We have to bring life. We have to bring life to our homes, like they did. It can't be only for the masjid. It can't be only for the masjid. This is extremely important. And this is the legacy that many of us, when I say us, our ancestors, were snatched away from. This is why this is important. You can get a look at what you're missing. You can get a glimpse. It's only a summary here, and we're reading from a book, but it's still a glimpse at what was taken from you. This is why, shameless plug, this is why we do the Tracing Our Islamic Roots tour. Next one coming up in February. Don't have exact dates yet, but if you're trying to ride with us, February. It's going to be 10 days in length. MashaAllah. Continue.
Bismillah. Additionally, she is celebrated for her translations of classic Arabic fiqh manuals into the native language of Wolof, whilst reordering them into poems better suited for young people to memorize. A combined function of linguistic familiarity and rhythm. The poems are still used within her father's community to teach basic Islamic jurisprudence to beginners. Sheikha Maimuna al-Kabir, another famous daughter of Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, scribed approximately 20 copies of the Qur'an from memory and offered them as a gift to her father. In fact, her life was inspiringly intertwined with the Qur'an to such a degree that she married her first husband as a result of them both offering a Qur'an written from memory to the Sheikh on the same day. Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba saw this as a testament of their compatibility and married them off to one another as a result of the common love and attachment to the Quran they both shared. On another occasion, as she was presenting one of her handwritten copies of the Quran to her father, someone entered the room and informed him of the birth of his youngest daughter. In Senegalese society, one of the greatest ways you can display your esteem for another is by naming your child after them. And so, due to his appreciation for the Quran he received from his daughter, he named the infant Maimuna, and she grew up being known as Maimuna al-Sagir, small Maimuna. Maimuna as-Sagir grew up to love the Quran, master its sciences, and later in her life relocated to a small village on the outskirts of her father's city of Tuba, where she built a masjid and madrasa which was attended by thousands of students. She is, however, mostly known for establishing and annually sponsoring the celebration of Laylatul Qadr on the 27th night of Ramadan in Tuba, which grew to attract hundreds of thousands of people from across Senegal. Until her death in 2000, she would feed all the guests who came to celebrate the night while also hosting Quran and Qasida recitations in her village.
And we're going to stop there for today. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Are there any questions? Good reading, Samira. This is the sisters laying it down. Look, none of them had to jump on the plane, had to take a caravan to go learn it. They learn it right at home. And this is the way we need to be. We need to be self-sustaining. Do for self, as we used to say here. Do ourselves on all levels. Because trust me, no, they didn't. Ain't nobody gonna do it for us. What's the proof? They ain't doing it for us. Many people trying to block us. So we have to do it for ourselves. Really, if you study that hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "Kulukum ra'in wa kulukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi," each and every one is a shepherd and will be questioned about his flock. If you just look at the order in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about that, you will see that we should look, I'll say it this way, we should look at like the masjid as a community. It has a hierarchy, it has leadership, it has structure. Our families should be the same way. It has organization, it has leadership, it has structure. And the same things that you would expect taking place in a healthy masjid should be also taking place in a healthy household, in a healthy family. Like I learned some years ago, the way I see like public schools in places different in places where young people normally gather, right? So you have a home for various reasons, some of which no fault of their own, some of which is, right? Producing toxic, broken individuals. Then you have a whole bunch of homes producing the same type of people. And then you send them to school for 8 hours, where this toxicity and this brokenness can come together with some other toxicity and brokenness and get concentrated and get stronger. And then those toxic and broken little people come out and they go home for another dose. And this cycle keeps going on. And then these people are released into society, toxic and broken, and then they're blamed for it. We have to break the cycle. We have to make sure that toxicity and brokenness is not being produced in our homes. And then once that happens, we have to make sure to the best of our ability that our little people are not, coming into contact with other people to the best of our ability. And it's virtually impossible in this environment with other people that's toxic and broken. Because I don't know about you all, but my experience is if you could take your children and say, hey, mix with these other 1,000 kids, 999 of them will be righteous kids. Many of our children will find that one toxic, broken kid, and that'll be his best friend. Like out of all these kids, you have to get cool with that one, huh? And be Umi. Now I don't like them. They corny. They boring. Y'all see that too? Tara said, yep. I think that's what she's saying, yep, to. In this environment, being smart, intelligent, carrying yourself with morals, that's corny. And it didn't just start. When I was young, I made fun of corny kids too. I don't know where it comes from in this environment. Intelligence is mocked, is made fun of. If you listen to the teacher and do what the teacher says in school, you get a nickname. Oh, you're the teacher's pet. Oh, the people gonna mess with you in class. It's in this environment. We all have to be active in creating these environments that we're reading about. I hope we're not just reading this stuff just to feel good and be like, yeah, they was black. It's like I'm black. Nah, it's more than that. It's more than that. We should be looking at what we just read, looking at our individual situations, and see how we can introduce some or all of that into our personal situation, step by step. And then once we become conscious and we're trying to make these changes in our own households, we need to link up with other people that's on that same wavelength. And it can't just, we all can't be spectators. Like, yeah, alhamdulillah, the imam laying it down. We with you, imam. No, man. Now, if you with me, you with me. You physically right here. You spending what I'm spending. You suffering what I'm suffering. That's how you with me. The other stuff, that's cheerleaders. American football, right? Yeah, a cheerleader has their, I guess they have their place, right? I guess they have them for a reason, right? But that cheerleader ain't getting ran into, ain't getting concussions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the cheerleader may support the team, but you can't say the cheerleader is as important as the players on the field. Nah. Well, too many of us are cheerleaders. We externally support from a distance. And because so many of us are like that, we destine our children for failure in this environment. But once again, if you go back to us, the same people, you look at people who have bad creed that takes them out of Islam, right? But they understand what we're talking about. They've built schools, businesses, and all that kind of stuff. Like, man, why is it that we're always able to do this with negativity? In the Islamic context, the negativity is the bad creed, right? We say like every group among us that had bad creed, they built stuff, even though it don't last. If you take it outside of the Islamic context, but still negative, drug dealers, why are they able to do stuff? But you can't use the same ingenuity that you use to build a drug empire to build a business empire. You know how much work, you know how much you got to stay on your toes to do crime? Because there's always someone ready to come take it from you and be the next kingpin. You can't even bow out gracefully. Like, I'm good. I ain't selling drugs no more. Somebody gonna get mad and try to knock you off. So to avoid that, to last even 2 years, like all the big kingpins whose names you know, when you look at how long they had a run, I forgot what they say the average run is, like 3, 4 years, something like that. That's not long. Because to be in that type of environment, at least amongst us, you got most of the time you gotta be flashy. That means everybody gonna know who you are. That means you're a target by law enforcement and other people trying to take your spot. But you can have that same ingenuity, the same smarts, and you can get money in a positive way. And you don't need to be flashy. You don't even have to let people don't even have to know that you got money like that. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm ranting. There was no questions. Inshallah, I hope to see you tomorrow for our uh, extended Sirah class, where we're now talking about the 10 companions who were promised paradise. And we're going to be talking about Abdurrahman ibn Auf tomorrow, inshallah, before we move into the wives of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah increase you all in knowledge. May Allah increase you all in sincerity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you who donated. Arakia and Brother Talib. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, you're always coming through. May Allah bless you. You all and your families, all of you. Alhamdulillah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته